There's something deeply powerful about the way we choose to believe. It's not visible, but it shapes almost everything we do. You can notice it daily in how someone enters a room, how they greet others, or how they talk about a challenge they're facing. Belief isn't just about having evidence. It's about having an approach, a mindset that says, I'm going to move forward like things will turn out well, even if there's no sign yet. And that mindset, that kind of belief, changes behavior more than the situation ever could. Think about this. Two people are dealing with the same issue. One thinks they're going to fail, while the other believes they'll figure it out. It's the same obstacle, but they respond in completely different ways. The first holds back, doubts themselves, and avoids taking risks. The other steps up, asks for help, tries new things, and adapts. It's not that the second person is more skilled or more intelligent. It's that they've already made up their mind that this is going to work out. They just need to keep moving forward. And that belief shifts how they act. It gives them strength to keep going. It brings more clarity. It pushes them toward progress. People often say we should be realistic, like being realistic is the same thing as giving up. But when most people say be realistic, what they usually mean is don't get your hopes up too much. But that can be a trap. Because when we lower our hopes just to avoid disappointment, our actions start to match that lower view. When you think something can't happen, you stop putting effort into it. You stop looking for ways. You stop creating. Not because the path is blocked, but because you stopped trying to open the door. Belief isn't about being foolish. It's smart. It's the first step toward taking action. The best in the world, whether in sports, music, or leadership, start with a strong inner belief that they can rise to the challenge. They don't sit around waiting to feel confident. They take the first step. And confidence grows from that. Confidence doesn't come first, it's built. And belief is what lets you take that very first step without needing a promise it'll work. I met someone not long ago who was going through a tough time in his career. He had just lost his job, didn't know what to do next, and felt really stuck. But then something changed. Not in the outside world. He didn't get a sudden job offer or some big break. What changed was his mindset. He told me, I'm going to treat this like it's the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it doesn't feel that way yet. That one choice changed everything. He started reaching out to people differently. He walked into interviews with more energy. He started creating chances instead of just waiting for them. And 3 months later, he found a job that wasn't just better, it was perfect for him. But it didn't happen because he got lucky. It happened because of belief. When you behave like everything works out for you, your decisions are based on hope, not fear. That doesn't mean you're never scared. It means you don't let fear decide your actions. You begin to trust the journey. You trust your own ability to bounce back. You don't need the full map to start walking. You just need to believe the next step will lead somewhere worth going. There's something quiet and powerful about people who keep moving forward without needing guarantees. They move differently, not with ego, but with quiet strength. And others notice. People are drawn to them not because they seem to have all the solutions, but because they seem steady. They don't panic in chaos. They've made peace with not knowing everything. They've already chosen to believe it'll work out, and they carry that belief everywhere, with every handshake, every conversation, every decision. And here's the thing. When you act like things are always going to work out, they often do. Not because the world magically changes for you, but because your belief leads you to act in ways that give better results. You show up more. You don't give up easily. You keep conversations alive. You listen better. You take more chances. And people enjoy being around that kind of energy. Opportunities come more often to those who keep knocking. It's not luck. It's behavior that comes from belief. We all carry stories in our heads, stories about who we are, what we can do, and what we're allowed to have. A lot of these stories weren't even ours to begin with. They came from others, teachers who didn't believe in us, bosses who overlooked us, or family members who shared their own worries with us. But the truth is, we get to choose our story. We decide what we believe about ourselves, and that belief will affect how we move through the world and how the world responds to us. Acting like things always work out isn't about being full of yourself or pretending nothing ever goes wrong. It's about steady hope. It's about saying, no matter what happens, I'll find a way through it. I'll learn something. I'll grow stronger. And that's not fate. That's preparing for life. That's choosing to believe in your ability to get back up, even when the ground shakes beneath you. The people who inspire us most didn't have it easy. They're the ones who kept going even when things didn't make sense. The ones who believed anyway. They acted like they would make it, not because they had proof, but because they knew they wouldn't give up. That's what we remember. That's what touches our hearts. So when you're facing something unsure or difficult, remember this. The most important thing isn't what you do, it's what you believe. Because belief drives action, and action creates results. Make a strong choice. Act like everything is happening in your favor. The moment you do, the game has already shifted. We are all storytellers. Every one of us, whether we know it or not. We're telling ourselves a story every day about who we are, what's possible, and how the world works. And the thing is, our brain believes it, not because it's true, but because it's familiar. We've said it enough times. This isn't just poetic, it's science. Our brains are built for story. They're always trying to understand what's going on and give it meaning. When something happens, good or bad, the brain wants to know, what does this mean? And depending on the story we're already carrying, we'll come up with a different meaning. Two people can go through the exact same thing. One says, see, nothing ever works out for me. The other says, this is just a twist. Something better is coming. One person falls apart, the other adjusts. Same event, different story. The difference isn't in what happened, it's in how we explain it. And what's most important is this: the story comes first and behavior follows. The way we think affects how we act, and how we act shapes the results we get. It's a loop, and it begins with the words we say in our heads. The brain doesn't stop to ask if the story is helpful, it just accepts it. So if we keep telling ourselves we're unlucky, not good enough, or meant to fail, the brain starts looking for signs to prove that. It's not lying to us, it's just trying to help us make sense of things using the story we gave it. But here's the great part. We can change the story. We can decide to act like things always go our way. Not because we've already seen the proof, but because we want to give our brain a better target, a better direction, a more helpful truth. And I'm not talking about ignoring real problems or pretending everything is perfect. I'm talking about perspective. I'm talking about choosing a story that pushes us forward, that helps us take the next step, lead, and show up. Even when things feel uncertain. When we choose a better story, our brain starts looking for better answers. It becomes curious instead of closed off, creative instead of tired. I once worked with a man who had faced one failure after another while trying to build his business. He was drained, ready to quit. At one point he said, maybe I'm just not made for this. I stopped him and asked, what if that's just a story? What if every setback is just preparing you for something better you can't see yet? He was quiet. That one thought shifted everything. He didn't become a success overnight, but he started showing up differently. He asked deeper questions. He looked at every challenge as part of the journey, not a sign to stop. 6 months later, his third try began to work. Not because he got lucky or smarter, but because he believed a new story. A story where failure wasn't the end. A story where life was actually helping him, not hurting him. Our brain trusts the voice it hears the most, and that voice is usually our own. The way we speak to ourselves becomes the background music of our lives. So when we start telling ourselves that things always work out, we're not pretending, we're reprogramming. We're giving our minds a helpful way to handle life. This change affects how we walk into rooms, how we respond to feedback, and how we face rejection. If we tell ourselves every no is just a redirection, we stop fearing it. If we believe every challenge is a chance to grow, we stop avoiding them and start welcoming them. The story gives our brain something to do. Find the lesson, find the growth, find the next path. And because our brain wants to help, it starts delivering on that request. I think we often overlook just how much control we truly have over our own mindset. We tend to wait for something outside of us to confirm that good things are coming. But the reality is that belief doesn't come after proof, it builds the proof. When we hold the belief that everything eventually works out, we begin to behave in ways that match that story. We become more open, we learn to trust, we keep going longer, and over time, those habits start to lead to results that look a lot like everything working out. Think about the people who've had the biggest impact on your life. Most likely they weren't the most intelligent or the most gifted in the room, but they had a way of making you believe. Not in some over-the-top or unrealistic way, but in a believable sense of what's possible. They helped you picture a story where you mattered, where your efforts had purpose, where change was possible. That's what strong leaders do. They tell a story worth following, and they tell it with such consistency that others begin to step into it. We can do that for ourselves as well. We can lead ourselves, not in a shallow or cheesy self-help kind of way, but in a grounded, real-life way. When you start your day, you have a choice about which story you feed your mind. Is today something to fear or something to explore? Is the difficulty ahead just a problem, or is it a chance to grow? Are you simply unlucky, or are you inside a bigger story that hasn't reached its turning point yet? The mind will follow your direction. It will believe whatever you repeat, so choose carefully. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you care deeply for. Tell yourself a story of strength, of movement, of trust. Walk through life acting like the best is still ahead, and soon your mindset will shift. Your behavior, your energy, your results, those will shift too. Because the story we repeat in our heads is more than a reflection of who we are. It becomes the framework for who we are becoming. Tell a story that's worth believing in, and then live like it's true. There's a common mistake people make about optimism. They hear the word and immediately think it means ignoring reality or pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't. But that's not optimism. That's avoidance. True optimism doesn't mean avoiding hard things. It means deciding how we meet those things. It's not blind hope. It's focused thought. It's a choice to look for what's possible, even when things feel impossible. Discipline is key. Optimism is not just a mood, it's a mindset you build. And like anything worthwhile, it takes effort. It requires commitment. It demands work. The truth is, it's easy to be negative. It's easy to be doubtful. The world offers us plenty of reasons to believe things are falling apart, that we're out of chances, that hope is slipping away. But optimism is something you must choose and choose again, especially when it's the hardest thing to hold on to. You can't just wait until you feel hopeful. That's like waiting to feel strong before you start training. Doesn't work like that. Strength grows when you show up. Optimism grows the same way, by training your thoughts to search for possibility, to look for answers, to stay rooted in the belief that there's always another step forward, even if it's small, even if it's not clear, even if it feels like you're barely moving. I've seen leaders who wear this kind of optimism like a shield. They enter tough moments not with fake cheer, but with a calm confidence that says, we'll figure this out. We've got what we need. That kind of attitude builds steadiness. People are drawn to it, not because the leader has every answer, but because they carry belief and direction. That's what disciplined optimism does. It gives people something solid to hold on to. It starts with a simple but strong question. What's the kindest explanation for what's happening right now? What's the most hopeful way to view this moment? When everything feels like it's falling apart, ask, what could this be preparing me for? What might this moment be trying to teach me? It's not about pretending that everything is easy. It's about searching for meaning inside the difficult. That's the essence of optimism. It's picking purpose over panic. People who live as though things will work out for them aren't ignoring the hard. They've simply trained themselves to believe two things at once, that life is hard and that it's still progressing, that setbacks hurt and still have value, that they may not be where they want to be yet, but they're still moving in the right direction. That mindset takes effort, it requires emotional growth, and it takes consistent practice. Think about how different someone becomes when they see failure as an ending compared to when they see it as insight. That second person isn't untouched by disappointment. They just choose to use it. They say, this didn't turn out how I expected, so what's possible now? Mindset isn't automatic, it's built. And the more you build it, the stronger it gets. We live in a world that loves outcomes. But real change happens in the waiting, in the uncertainty, in the messy middle. That's where optimism can either hold you up or let you down. The kind that says, I'll only believe it when I see it, crumbles when things get tough. But the kind that says, I'll keep going even when things are unclear, That's the mindset that lasts. That's the mindset that leads. Some think optimism is soft, but I believe it's one of the strongest things you can carry. It's refusing to let fear shape who you are. It's standing in the unknown and saying, I don't know how this will work, but I believe we'll make it. That's not weakness, that's strength. And here's the thing, optimism doesn't promise that everything will go the way you want, but it ensures that you'll be prepared when things do come together. It moves you. It keeps you open to ideas. It makes you resourceful. It gives you a reason to keep showing up long after others have quit. It keeps you in the game. I once heard someone say, hope isn't a strategy, but I don't agree. Hope is where strategy begins. Hope fuels action. Without hope, there's no reason to plan, to try, to build. Optimism lights the fire. It says, this matters, let's go. And from that place, we do better. We connect more easily. We think in more creative ways. We recover faster. We become stronger, not because we ignore our struggles, but because we refuse to be controlled by them. When you act like everything will eventually work out for you, what you're really doing is choosing consistent optimism. You're saying, I know things won't be perfect, but I trust myself to learn. I believe the future holds more than what I see now. And that kind of mindset changes everything. Not instantly, but slowly and surely. Of course, you'll still have doubts. That's normal. We all do. But optimism isn't about never doubting. It's about where you return after the doubt. It's the mindset you come back to when uncertainty knocks you off course. And when you hold that space, not just for yourself, but for others, you become someone people want to follow. Not because you paint a flawless picture, but because you provide a future they can believe in. A future based on values, on commitment, on trust. So when you feel discouraged, remember, optimism doesn't mean ignoring the dark. It means deciding to light a candle anyway. It's the quiet strength that says, we're not done yet. There's still something worth building here. That mindset, that discipline, that focus is what separates ordinary people from extraordinary ones. Not because they never struggle, but because they never stop believing in the comeback. There's always a pause before a decision. We hesitate. We wait for things to feel clear. We wait for a sign. We wait until we feel certain. But here's the truth. Clarity hardly ever shows up before action. Confidence doesn't either. We think we need proof before we move. But really, we need movement before we find the proof. The path gets clearer as we walk. Action creates clarity. We all want to feel certain. It's natural. We want to know how things will go before we put our energy and heart into them. But in most of life, certainty isn't how things start. It's what comes later, after we've already stepped into the unknown. There's this idea that we need to fully believe in ourselves before we do something new, before we speak up, before we lead, before we try. But that's backward. Belief grows from taking steps. Each move forward, even a small one, gives us something real to hold on to. Something that says, you're doing it, keep going. The people you admire, the brave ones, the bold ones, they didn't wait until they felt completely sure. They moved anyway. And because they moved, they discovered things about themselves, about the world, about what was possible. When you live as if things are always working out for you, you start to create that proof in real life. It's not fake confidence. It's a decision to act in line with the result you want, even before you see proof. And when you do that, when you show up with energy, hope, and creativity, the world starts to meet you with chances that wouldn't have come if you stayed in place. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a foggy road and you can't see beyond a few feet. You could wait for the fog to clear, but what if it never does? Or what if the fog only clears as you walk each step forward, shows you a bit more? That's how life moves. That's how we make progress. Moving forward is what lets you see the future. I've worked with people who waited for years for the right time, waited for the fear to fade, waited for someone to give them a signal, and what they found out, often in the hard way, is that waiting doesn't give you new answers, it only feeds doubt. The more you wait, the louder your fears get, but when you do something, even something small, you give your mind something fresh to hold on to. You break the cycle of fear. Action changes the story that says you can't do anything. It stops the stuck feeling. It tells yourself, I'm not frozen, I'm not helpless, I'm moving. And that shift from being passive to taking charge is where real change starts. One of the most freeing truths is this: you don't have to feel ready to start. Being ready isn't needed. It grows through doing. You say something in a meeting and suddenly feel a bit braver, so you send that proposal and see that you're okay. You try, you fall, you learn, you adjust, and each round of action adds to your own book of proof. I can deal with this. I'm stronger than I thought. Let me tell you about a woman I once helped. She dreamed of starting her own business. She had the idea, the drive, the dream, but she kept putting it off. She said, I just need to know this will work. But what she truly needed was to take action. So I told her to begin with something small. Make one call, send one email, pitch one person. And what happened? She got a few no's, but also one yes. And that one yes gave her more proof than all her waiting ever could. That's how progress is made, not through big jumps, but by steady, clear steps toward your goal. Each one adds to your belief that what you want can really happen. Each one gives the world a chance to reply, and it often does. Not always how we thought, but in ways that remind us we're not foolish for trying, but we have to stop seeing action as something we do only when we feel confident. Action is the drive, and confidence shows up later, after you've kept showing up. And when you take action from the belief that things are working out for you, you don't need quick results to feel good. You're not chasing proof, you're building it. And there's something powerful about this way of thinking. When you walk into life expecting things to turn in your favor, even when they haven't yet, you bring a different energy into every space. People feel it, they believe in it, and many times they follow you. You start gathering a team, a following, a culture built on that feeling. And it all begins because you chose to move before the path was clear. Now that doesn't mean you act without thinking. Smart action still means planning, being patient and thoughtful, but it's moving forward. Forward motion says, I may not know it all, but I'll figure out more by doing something. You can't guide a car that's not moving, but once it's rolling, you can steer, you can change direction as the road reveals itself. If you look back at your own journey, the moments you're most proud of probably didn't begin with total confidence. They started with risk, with a choice to step into something uncertain. And what made those moments powerful wasn't what happened at the end, it was the fact that you acted. That's what wrote your story. That's what gave you real knowledge of your own strength. And if right now you're standing at the edge of something, a new plan, a big shift, a tough choice, and you're waiting to feel sure, remember this: movement makes proof. And the proof you're hoping to see won't come before you move. It's waiting for you beyond the next step. When you behave as if everything is going to work out for you, you're not being foolish. You're choosing to believe in your future. You're picking bravery over safety, and that choice builds the base for the life you truly want. One step, one message, one choice at a time. So move, not because you're not scared. Move because you're becoming someone who no longer waits for someone else to say, go, Manny. Times we don't even notice it, but every time we show up, every time we break through hesitation, every time we step forward, even when we're unsure, we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for those watching, the ones hoping for proof that this kind of thing is possible. Because one of the strongest forms of leadership is just being the proof that others need to believe. You become the example that the path is worth walking in. Every room, every team, every family. There are quiet watchers asking themselves, can someone like me really do this? Can I speak my mind and still be respected? Can I take a chance and still be okay? Can I fail and still be enough? And when they see someone else do it, someone who doesn't have it all figured out, someone who's still learning it, gives them more than advice. It gives them permission. That's what happens when you move. Like everything's working in your favor. You become a symbol of what's possible. You carry belief in a way that lifts others, not through big words or empty hype, but through your actions, your strength, your steady presence. You become a mirror that shows others what they forgot was inside them. Think about it. When we feel unsure, when we're lost, we look for examples. We scan for people who made it through, who faced the unknown and kept going. That's why stories matter. That's why true leadership matters, not because of rank or power, but because it shows others the way. When someone jumps first, it makes it easier for others to follow. But here's the thing. You can't light that spark in others if you're still waiting for outside proof yourself. Real leadership starts with the choice to be your own example, to move based on what you believe, even without final answers, to make space for what could happen, even when it's unclear. And when you live like that, you build trust, and this is where real growth begins. I once knew a leader who was handed a team that was tired and unsure. Results were shaky and belief was gone. She didn't come in with a loud plan or sudden changes. Instead, she came in steady, calm, focused. She listened, she acted, she kept her word, and slowly her actions wrote a new story, one that said, "We're not stuck, we're just beginning." People started to believe again, not because of a clever phrase, but because of how she showed up. That's what it means to lead by being the example. You become the one who brings courage, just by being real, not perfect, not always certain, but full of effort and grounded in truth. And when you do that, you help others speak their truth too. Now, some people hear this and think, that's too much to carry. I never wanted to be someone's example. But whether you meant to or not, people notice, especially those close to you, your family, your friends, your team. They're not waiting for you to be perfect. They want to see you be honest, to try and fail and rise again, to face life with a mindset that says, I may not have full control, but I choose how I act and your actions. That's what sticks, not the wins, not the rewards, but how you carried yourself. That's what becomes the model they use when it's their turn to be brave. And the beautiful part is that you don't need a fancy title to lead like this. You don't need to be the loudest one around. You just need to be steady in your beliefs, strong in your values, and open to being seen, trying, and that alone changes every space you walk into. Here's one more thing. When you live like you are proof that good things are always coming, you build a quiet kind of strength. People notice, they ask, they listen, they trust you, not because you know everything, but because you're clearly doing the work, because you're not pretending, you're showing up, and that kind of showing up draws people in. We don't speak enough about the kind of leadership that's invisible. The kind that gets no awards, the kind that happens in silent moments, the late night doubts, the private decisions to keep going. That kind of leadership builds cultures that last, because one day someone will come to you, maybe even years from now. Later on, someone might come up to you and say, I was watching you. I saw how you handled that situation, and it gave me the strength to do the same. That's when you'll understand that your discipline, your mindset, and your strength weren't just helping you, they were showing the way for someone else too. So ask yourself, what kind of example am I becoming? What message does my life share? What kind of permission am I giving to others through how I live, work, lead, and keep going? Because the truth is, whether you know it or not, you are becoming someone's reason to hope. You are shaping what people believe is possible. And when you choose to live with the belief that life is working out in your favor, even in the chaos, even in the waiting, you bring hope into places that really need it. This isn't about pride. It's about being of service. It's about owning your role. It's about leaving something meaningful behind. The way you live becomes a part of someone else's journey. So keep showing up. Keep trusting. Keep building, not just for your own goals, but for everyone who's still learning how to believe again. You're not only creating change in your own world, you're creating waves that touch others too. And those waves, that kind of influence, starts the moment you choose to be the proof of what you once needed to see.